I'm so cold. Yeah, my heart's sinking like a storm. Cold. I'm so cold. Yeah, my heart's sinking like a storm.
Jared, we're talking about girth and magnets today.
Yeah! Welcome back to Progressive E. Hey, so we get a lot of questions. What's the difference between the Sur Ron motor and the KO motor and why the KO motor is better? This is a quick, basic overview of why it is better. So to start off with, we'll just focus purely on the Sur Ron motor. This is what they call an SPM, so Surface Permanent Magnet Rotor, as you can see here. So basically, essentially what this is laminations put together, and then you literally screw, I suppose you'd apply some glue as well, and hold these magnets to the outside.
So by laminations, Jared, you mean a bunch of steel, thin laminates,
Yep.
all stacked up in a row to make that one big chunk.
That's essentially it. So, and that's a standard thing with making any motor. You'll use laminates because it basically increases magnetic flux, which we'll kind of touch on that a little bit. So the downfall of what this motor basically runs is this is the cheapest way to get into a permanent magnet motor. So it doesn't have much use of the magnetic reluctance in the way of making the motor more efficient. And the other thing that it lacks is RPM. So you're essentially speed limited with this style of rotor, basically because the magnets will crack, they'll physically fall, and you're also power limited with this style of rotor as well. So basically the more magnetic force, the more current you put through these coils, physically pull on this magnet, it will exacerbate the cracking issue, and essentially those magnets will crack and fall off. And that is pretty much the main reason why you wouldn't want to pick an SPM for a high RPM application.
And it looks really cheap, doesn't it, Jared? Like it's just stuck on with Phillips head screws there that have actually been half stripped in the factory.
Yep. So in the Sur Ron factory, it's really important to half strip every screw as you put them together.
Yep.
And then paint little pink markings on top so you know which one's north and which one's south, just in case you forget. So moving on to basically the main difference as far as the stator goes, which has all the coils of wire in it, the main difference between this and the KO motor is purely size. Essentially, this is a lot smaller motor and this is a lot larger motor. It has more copper in the KO motor, less copper in the Sur Ron motor. Basically, that just means one of two things, that this can run less current, this can run more current. Because the heatsink is physically larger also on the KO, it's going to be able to cool better than what this can cool. And the end caps on this Sur Ron motor as well are, they're not really a nice bit of billet CNC'd material, they're a cast material. So billet aluminium performs better as a heat sink in general, compared to a bit of cast aluminium, which doesn't form or doesn't in turn work as well as a heat sink. So moving over to the KO motor, the main difference is that it's IPM as far as the rotor is concerned. If you can see this blue stuff here, this is basically balancing putty.
Are you telling me, Jared, that's not chewing gum from the guys in the factory? Just gonna stick the chewing gum.
It is the most concrete chewing gum you could ever imagine. So same way how you'd balance a wheel, essentially you balance it with balancing putty. It just means that it's designed again for higher speed. So the main difference with IPM, there's kind of two differences here. The first one is that the magnets are literally inside the actual rotor itself. So they're they're pressed into the laminations and glued as well. What this does is this actually effectively mechanically puts the magnets in place. It means that as you've got a rotor spinning, those magnets aren't going to pull away at a screw, or they're not going to loosen glue. They're basically stuck in place. So this rotor can essentially spin faster. It can also handle more power because the magnets are mechanically put in place. The other thing that this really takes advantage of, which is a bit of an efficiency thing, is, and it's more done in the tuning side, but if you look carefully, you'll see these magnets actually placed in V's. you can actually, there's a thing called reluctance, which is where everything's fighting the forces of your magnetic rotation. You can actually gain reluctance in these peaks, which means that this actually runs more efficient than an SPM type setup. So if you are testing this motor, you might find that when you're not pushing more kilowatts, you actually get some better range out of it, which we've noticed ourselves. So over to Truett, what do you reckon? Because I'm obviously an electrician and I'm trained in this stuff, what do you, just without your knowledge on this stuff, what do you actually think? Which one would you buy?
Oh mate, I'd buy that hands down. I was honestly shocked when I pulled this apart and saw just like how cheap this is. Like, for one, it's so much skinnier than this big L over here with chewing gum on it. Like, I was like, yeah, right, that's average as. And they're just screwed on there. Like, I reckon your 3-year-old son could probably do something just as good, Jared. That is good.
Ezra could definitely do better.
Yeah.
And this is the two differences, really. This is made at a price.
Yeah, that's it.
And this is also made at a price, but this is a price versus performance. And like, for what you're getting, I've opened up a lot of motors over my time in the trade, and this is a well-built, high-quality, brushless DC motor. So pretty much there you have it as far as the motor concerned. IPM, it's better at handling power, it's better at handling higher RPM. SPM, it's just the cheapest way to get into a brushless motor. It's not as good at high power applications, and it's not as good at high speed applications. So if you're chasing 100 miles per hour or you're chasing some high number, this will be the only design you'll go for. This is what Tesla and all the electric car manufacturers use. It's obviously a lot more trick than what this is, but the basic design is IPM. So we've got a bit of a test coming up short. So what's the first test we're going to do in a separate video on the Sur Ron motor?
We're going to test its limits.
Yeah.
See how much it can actually handle.
So we've got another KO controller coming, and we're just going to push this. Everyone says that this motor can run 20 kilowatts. So we're going to write a tune. I'm going to try to keep the phase amps down as low as possible so that it basically has a chance to compete with this running 20 kilowatt. I'm going to see how long it actually lasts for. And then second to that, we're going to kind of play with the thermal throttling settings, and we're going to see what happens to this basically if you try to push it to its max. And we're going to try to cook the thing for science. But yeah, just to show you that this thing, like we've had comments where people go, oh, it's no competition if you test this on 19 kilowatt and you have this on 15. It isn't. But the thing is, this will do it, but it will do it for 1 or 2 pulls. And I don't know about you, but I don't ride my bike and go, nah, and then let off, wait 5 minutes, let it cool down, and then go again. Like, you're on the throttle. You've got to use it. This can run high power continuously. This can't. Yeah, like in 15 kilowatt, from what we've seen, is generally the max here in Australia. Maybe if you live in Antarctica or somewhere colder.
Even then, I don't know. We noticed that it's not going to handle 15 kilowatt all the time. You were saying about this bubbling, Jared?
Yeah. So you can actually see where obviously this winding has got hot in a fair few places, and I'm pretty like I like to generally try look after my gear. And I can see bubbling on the resin on this, which means this has already got hot, and that's been running 12 kilowatt tune for most of its life, and then up to a 15 kilowatt tune right at the end. So, there's definitely some heating there that's happened, which means this motor's starting to fail, and yeah, it was designed for 5 kilowatt continuous, not 15, not 12. They do it, but for how long, it's kind of anyone's guess. Yeah, so we hope that clears everything up for you. And if you've been considering the KO motor, is it better? This kind of pulls it apart and shows you we definitely, in our testing, it's better. In our honest testing, it's definitely better. And yeah, like this is a great package to get you in on what is essentially a cheap bike. But if you really want the best, then this is the only way to go currently in this market.
Yeah. Cool. All right.
Thanks for watching.
We'll see you in the next
If
one.
I should stay or be alone, won't you make up your mind? 'Cause I'm getting tired of overthinking every move you make, and I can help you decide who you're loving now and how I'm not quite there somehow. My intuition says to give you up, but my heart can't easily let you go. I try to tell myself